Welcome to Out of Court and Out of Conflict, presented by Wasinger Law Office.
Hello and welcome to Out of Court and Out of Conflict, your guide to estate law and probate solutions by Wasinger Law Office. Join us today as we unravel legal complexities and secure your family's legacy with experienced attorney Matt Wasinger. I am your host, Kevin Rosenquist, and today's episode is Behind the Closing Table, What Florida Real Estate Buyers and Sellers Need to Know. Hey, Matt, good to see you.
Good to see you, Kevin.
So let's talk. We'll talk about some real estate buyers and sellers and what we need to know here. So in Florida, what is the role of the attorney during a real estate closing?
In Florida, they don't require an attorney to be part of the process, so it might not be involved at all. There are some states that require title companies to be either run by attorneys or an attorney be part of the process. It's in some way, shape, or form. Florida does not. So you could go start to finish without a realtor and without an attorney if you really wanted to, if you're brave enough or savvy enough to do it that way. So attorneys are there if you need them, and some title companies are run by attorneys, have attorneys attached to them. So they might be involved in the process, but they don't have to be.
Okay. And what is the role when an attorney is present?
Well, a lot of times with clients that I have, they're calling because they want somebody to kind of walk them through the closing process. There's a lot of realtors that do a really good job of doing that out there, but some people are either buying without a realtor or they just want a second set of eyes on everything, looking at the legal and contract language to go through with the purchase. In those cases, I'm literally taking a look at their listing agreement with their realtor, if that's part of the process. Sometimes I go over inspection reports with them when they're checking out the title reports. And then eventually when you get closer to a closing, if they're using financing, lender and closing documents, as well as the title company's closing documents. And we'll go through whatever questions they may have and what they need to look out for and things like that. On the flip side, if our office is actually handling the closing, then when you have an attorney that's handling a title company, they're an independent third party, right? They're not supposed to be on anyone's side necessarily. Right. So we're still explaining these documents to the people that come in, but we're not giving any legal advice on these documents, right? Or we're running title reports and we're putting together, we're pulling surveys, we're pulling liens and all sorts of issues that may or may not be involved in the property, and getting a title policy put in place, which makes sure that you're purchasing a home and everything that's in there and you're getting what you actually paid for. So there's multiple different ways that attorneys can be involved, but those are the two most common ways, especially when it comes to purchasing, just a residential property.
Yeah, I remember when we bought our house. I mean, the amount of times I signed my name was ridiculous. There's so much paperwork. I mean, it's sort of the old joke of how long you're sitting there just going through paperwork. So I can especially understand it if you do decide to not have a realtor, which I would never do. I mean, my wife's a realtor, so it's probably not allowed anyway. But like just looking at that process, it would be so difficult. So I totally understand why, especially if you're representing yourself and as far as the transaction goes, that you'd want a lawyer to kind of help you with that contract.
A lot of people, this is the most expensive thing they'll purchase, right? Like it's houses are not cheap, so it makes a lot of sense. And when you consider the purchase price and all of the costs that are going into home ownership, having an attorney available, which is just to review documents, that number, whatever they're charging you, is typically negligible in the scheme of things, because they're going to be able to point out stuff that you can't see and you might not know, and it prevents. Everyone's got self-interest, right? The realtor's got a little bit of self-interest because they get a commission from it, right? The title company's got a little bit of self-interest because they're just trying to get the title policy done and get paid for their work. So they're not always, or in some cases, you've got buyers and sellers using the same realtor. Well, whose side are they actually on? So having an attorney there to on your side specifically, to kind of go through some of that stuff is extremely helpful for a lot of people.
Can you talk about what buyers should expect when it comes to a title search and how it impacts the closing process?
Sure. A title search is when you are pulling all of the records related to that property. So all the public records. So are there outstanding liens on the property? I mean, did somebody some roofer do work on that house, but the house that you're buying, some roofer did work on it and never got paid, filed a lien. Are there any liens like that? Or maybe the HOA hasn't been paid in a while and there's an outstanding lien. Are there code enforcement violations? Meaning, maybe they failed to mow their lawn and the city or the county has come out and fined them and liened the property. Maybe there's outstanding taxes. All of that stuff is pulled up in a title search. And more importantly, there's also, is this person selling you the house? Do they have the right legal title to be able to do that? Because fraud is a thing. Or they didn't realize when they transferred title from the prior owner, there was a mistake somewhere in there. And one person that should have signed didn't sign. So now you've got a cloud, what we call a cloud on title, that prevents you from having free and clear title, meaning that house is just yours. You got it without any liens, unless you have a mortgage that you're purchasing it with. You've got it free and clear, and it's yours without a fight. And that's what a title policy will do, is protect you. It's an insurance policy for clean title. The other thing a title search will do is it'll show you easements. So easements are basically gifts to certain people to use the land for specific purposes, right? So almost every house in any area has an easement, at least for utilities or water, or for the city or the county to be able to put that on your property. You have to allow that there. Or maybe you have a joint driveway with the house next door. There's going to be an easement somewhere on there, at least you hope to find one, that shows that you have the ability and the authorization to use that driveway. Because sometimes you find out that there are easements there that you didn't realize were on that property. Maybe they just haven't been using them, but someone shows up one day and starts, pouring a road halfway through your property. What are you doing? We said, well, I have an easement, right? So that's an extreme example, but it's not unrealistic, because if someone before you on that property is granted an easement, typically they run with the land, meaning as you buy it, you're taking it subject to that easement, and you don't get to just unilaterally pull it or just dismiss it once you buy the property.
It's funny you said that. I actually know about that, because my wife had that very thing happen with a driveway, where there was like a shared driveway type of a situation. It all worked out. It was no big deal, but that's how I learned about the easements. So that seems like maybe that's kind of a common one.
Yeah, because there's always easements of some kind. And then you never know. There's always someone, random, that will just record their own easement, on a next door neighbor's property. They'll just file it in the public records and record it. Now it might not have any real teeth once you get into it, but you won't know about that or know whether you can get rid of that easement or remove it from your property without running a title search and having a title company point out what is on that property and what you may need to address.
What are some of the other common issues that come up during real estate closings, and how do you help buyers and sellers avoid those?
Well, on top of running a title search to find out, any liens that are on the property, which are a big thing, because if someone has a lien on the property, the seller's going to have to come up with the money to clean that off, because buyers 99% of the time aren't going to pay that extra money to get rid of the liens.
Yeah, and understandably so.
Yeah, you're either going to take it subject to those liens, which means those people can foreclose, which no one does, but or you got to get them taken care of. So that's a common issue that comes up. Another common issue that comes up is surveys. If you have a mortgage on a property, a mortgage company is going to make you get a survey, but title companies want a survey as well, because they want to make sure that what you're buying is actually yours and the property lines are where they're supposed to go. And you use that survey for a whole bunch of different things, including making sure that your house is built within the setback of the city or the county. And a setback is they've designated a certain amount of area or feet of your lot that can't be built on. And that's to try to keep some uniformity and keep houses from being right on top of everything else, right?
Sure,
so you
yeah.
can't build your property all the way up from inches from the sidewalk. There's going to be 10, 15, whatever it is, feet that you can build up to. And the other thing the survey will show is whether or not someone else has built on your property, or you may have built, not you personally, but someone may have built the property you're trying to buy on somebody else's property. When that happens, you've got a major issue that needs to be resolved, either, trying to talk to that other homeowner and seeing if you can get some sort of easement for what's there, or ripping out what's there. A lot of times it's something like a fence. It's not normally the building, although that happens. A fence is built on the wrong side of a property line. And if that happens in Florida, whoever's property is on it, they can do whatever they want with it. So you plant a whole bunch of expensive trees and things on the wrong side of the property line, you're out of luck if that property owner doesn't like them, wants to cut them down or do whatever with them. So a survey is one of the key things that shows potential problems when it comes to closing. And then the title search showing liens and unpermitted additions. That's not an uncommon thing in Florida too, where someone will close in, say, a kind of a mother-in-law suite in the back of their property, but not get it properly permitted. So then they're selling it as if, oh, we've got this house, and then we've got an extra 750 square feet of a mother-in-law suite. But if it's unpermitted, you can't count that as part of the sale because it hasn't been approved to be built by the city. So you're now, could be requested to be completely ripped down. Maybe it wasn't allowed to begin with. Those issues are what come up at a closing that you want to be prepared for. That's why running a title search is so important. And getting a title policy is so important because there are a million different things that can pop up before closing. And then the most common kind of issues are maybe it's just a funding issue, lenders wanting extra proof, extra backup, extra documents for all sorts of different things that just kind of slow that process down. Those are the biggest issues most of the time.
Yeah, and those are big. What happens if issues arise at the closing table? So like discrepancies in the title, last minute financing problems. Does that come up very often?
Yeah, all the time. I mean,
Really?
it's really just a matter of, sometimes it's just, all right, we're going to reschedule this closing until we get this resolved. Or sometimes at that point, somebody just walks. They say, this isn't worth it to me anymore. I've done that where I was looking to buy a property and we ran a title search and then we started the process. And then all of a sudden, all these things came up that weren't disclosed at the time of entering into the contract. And so because part of the contract said, these issues come up, we have the ability to walk, we walked. And that can happen just as easily at the closing table as it can, 3 days into your due diligence and inspection report. And I should add that inspection is a big issue when it comes to closings too, because you typically have the right, if you don't waive it, to go inspect the property or have somebody inspect it for you to point out any potential problems with the house, whether it's roof, whether it's termite damage, whether it's plumbing, unpermitted things like that. And you then have the option of asking the seller to fix them. They can agree or not agree, and then you can walk from that perspective. So sometimes that comes all the way up to closing where they're still arguing over what the compensation should be. Should we credit some money at closing to give them back the money to fix these issues? Or is the seller going to reschedule the closing so they can go get them fixed themselves and then, proceed with the closing at that point?
Yeah. And then for any first-time home buyers who might be listening, what advice do you give to them? They're kind of nervous about the closing process and whatnot. How can they prepare, whether it's documents, mentally, whatever, to ensure a smooth transaction?
Is number one, get a title search done. Get a title and lien and any potential liens and code enforcement liens and things out there, get that done right away because you're going to want to find out what's there before you go too far down the road. And you can do that on your own even before you, let's say, hire a realtor or enter into a contract on that house. If you're looking at multiple houses, most title companies will run a title search, a standard title search for between $100 and $200, somewhere in there.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're looking at multiple properties, but you're a little concerned about it, just order the title searches. Figure out what's there, what you're dealing with, especially in times where it's the real estate market is down. Typically, it's because the economy overall isn't great either. And there can be all sorts of extra issues that aren't there that you won't know until you go further in the process. So if you're concerned about any of that, get a title search right away. The other thing is be proactive on asking for copies of your documents before closing. You should be asking for copies of settlement statements, of your lender documents, your mortgage and note, and all the disclosures they're supposed to be giving you, the lender that is, and making sure you're going through it and read it on your own. Read it with your realtor, hire an attorney, but look through those and see what you're going to be going through. And that way, when you show up at that closing, you're not blindsided by some item that wasn't provided to you. Or, and if you are, stop, read it all, make sure that you understand it, and ask for an explanation before you just, blindly sign everything. Because once you sign everything, that property is yours,
Right.
Whether you like the outcome of everything behind it or not. And why a title policy, there are some people that will buy houses and properties with cash and not get a title policy because they don't want to spend the money, which is, title policies are not overly expensive. They can be expensive depending on the cost of the property, but in terms of the overall cost of the policy versus the purchase price you paid, having a title policy that ensures that you have clean title is paramount in those situations.
Yeah. I've heard of that as well. And that is definitely a good thing to have. All right. Well, thanks for tuning in to Out of Court and Out of Conflict with experienced attorney Matt Wasinger. For more information or to connect with Matt, visit wasingerlawoffice.com. And don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. Matt, always good having you here. Thanks so much for your time.
Thanks, Kevin. Appreciate it.
Thanks for watching. If you like this video, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more amazing videos like this one.